recommending an award on various purchase orders, and enter into a master contract with various providers in the total amount not to exceed $450,000 for temporary staff for COVID-19 screening services for various county buildings for the period September 28th, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, with Alliance Solutions Group in the amount not to exceed $150,000 and GPI Enterprises Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $300,000.
Good morning, Tom Pavich, Department of Public Works. This is the award recommendation with two vendors for a master contract, not to exceed dollar amount for temporary staffing for the screening services at various county buildings. The not to exceed dollar amount extends from today until June 30th of next year. This was a competitive RFP process. It was released August 31st, closed September 14th. It was released in the purchasing by speed bidding software system to 21 vendors. There was also an additional plan holders list that had 26 additional vendors. There were 5 proposals that were submitted. It was scored by a committee of 5, including members of Public Works, Human Resources, and the Sheriff's Department. And Alliance Solutions and GPI Enterprises are the 2 vendors being recommended for the award.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions from the board on this? Oh, excuse me, Lenora Lockett, please.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Is Alliance registered with the Inspector General? I didn't see them as the name is listed.
They should
here.
be.
I didn't see that name on the list, so.
Okay. If the board.
Give me 10 seconds, I'll tell you.
Let me see if there's other questions in the interim, and we can always approve contingent upon that. Any questions from the board on this item?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Trevor.
Yes.
I just have a question on the advance question. In terms of the dollar amount, how much is projected to be spent through December 31st of this year, and then how much is projected to be spent from December 31st to June 30th?
Nicole?
I don't know. We did put all of the funding in this year based on the federal funding guideline that it extends until the end of this year only. That's the reason we put all the funding in for this year. I don't know what the anticipated deployment process is going to be. I know we've scaled back recently at some of the buildings, but I don't know going forward with the upcoming flu season, winter season, if it's going to have to be increased at the various buildings. So I think that's, I'll use the word fluid, the actual deployment of these vendors, different buildings between now and the end of the year and as we project into next year.
Trevor, this is Nicole English from Public Works. So we were spending, I think, in excess of $40,000 every 2 weeks prior. That was before we had to staff the convention center for the courts. Now we are scaling down because we're starting to use county employees in some of the buildings. So I think, like Tom said, it's a little bit up in the air. I mean, this could change tomorrow if for some reason they decide we no longer need screening. So it's a not to exceed amount so that, if we need it, it's there, but we, didn't necessarily have a full, detailed plan just because things keep changing every week.
So, but then how was we came up with 450 for a reason, right? I mean, how was that number formulated then? If we're not,
it was when we first went out for the RFP, it was based on the current spending that was happening. Now we've scaled that back in the last couple of weeks, so we're down on the spending. But it was based on what we were spending in prior months up to that point. So we're trying to minimize it, if we don't need to get the county employees there, especially the ones who weren't working full time. So we are getting them paid opposed to the outside contractor. But that's where the 450 had come from when we first looked to put this on the street about a month and a half ago.
Were these two vendors the lowest hourly vendors that submitted?
Yeah, they were scored on more than just pricing, but I do believe these two were the lowest solution. And in fact, Alliance, I want to say Alliance is a little bit cheaper than GPI, maybe $1 or $2 an hour, but they weren't scored as high in the qualifications based on some of the information, that the sheriff's department shared with us, which is why they have less of the contract. But yeah, they were two of the lowest. There was, I mean, one of the firms that submitted was double these two, so that's why they scored poorly.
But putting the other factors away, were these two, set aside, were these two the lowest, though, hourly rate? Is that right? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yes, they were.
Okay. And then.
Yeah, I think Alliance was the pure lowest, and GPI was just a touch above them.
Okay. If this does go past January 1, 2021, and nothing changes related to the CARES Act money, what would be the funding source, for this contract?
It would have to be the general fund at that point, yep.
Yeah, we would have to address that at the time, maybe charge back to the building depending upon the concerns. I will throw out, though, Nicole and Tom, you need to make sure you're working with Matt Ruby so that we're not allocating money that we could elsewhere spend, please.
Will do.
This is Ann Baker. I have a question. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Trevor.
I was just gonna ask, can we get, kind of just an email every month or so, just to keep us apprised on how much we're spending, on this contract? As you know, the council president has some interest in this, service.
Yep.
Yep.
You know what we could,
Go ahead.
Trevor, we could add it to the, I know it's not a COVID building improvement, but I could add it to that weekly, report.
That would be great if that's okay, if it's not too much to
Yeah.
do it every week. Okay.
Yep, just because it'll
Thank
be
you,
in the
Nicole.
same spot then.
And Nicole, I'll build a template to start tracking these.
I think Councilwoman Baker had a question.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, if I can ask. Given that the dollars as it exists today for the CARES Act end at the end of December, it may be continued, it may not be, but what we're looking at today is that it will end. Shouldn't this be written for how much is needed for the CARES Act ending December 31st, and how much will be needed from that date forward by another funding source? And, you know, we hope that perhaps we won't need to do that because the CARES Act will extend, but that's not the way it is today. And I just wondered if that might be a little misleading, saying that we're hoping they change and that the $450,000 is all coming from the CARES Act funds.
I think, you're correct in reading that the funding would go until the end of this year, but the way the new software system is, if we were to identify additional six-figure dollar amounts or any figure dollar amount that matter, hitting the general fund, that would start to tie up 2021 funds as a commitment. And I don't know if, we would be prepared to start doing that at this time.
I guess the point is,
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I would say that, but that's the reality of what it is we're doing. I mean, I
yeah, so
don't
the
know
intent,
yes, go ahead.
Sorry, the $450, when we had budgeted that about a month and a half ago, that was really just to get us to the end of this year. We listed the contract date going into June, just in case something changes, so that we're not having to rebid the contract or put through an amendment for, just time. If there is money left on the contract, we would switch it at that point to general fund on the contract cover and make a amendment that way. It was really just to be sure that we don't lose, services, we don't have a gap in time for services. But if we were to change the funding source, that would come back and we would make that, apparent at that point. But the $450 was what was budgeted to get us to the end of the year, again, based on spending about a month and a half, 2 months ago. So it has come down, but I mean, this is what we had put out for RFP, so we could come in under based on what we're using now for county employees.
Right, okay. I guess I'm just dealing in the reality of 450 was targeted for this year. This year, the CARES Act funding will probably end, may not, we don't really know. And that, I just question why we don't just make it 9/28/2020 to 12/31/2020, and then come back and amend for additional dollars needed for the CARES Act or general fund dollars.
Yeah, I mean, to put an amendment through right now is taking, anywhere from 2 to 3 months. So it's kind of like, if we don't start it tomorrow, we might not get it by the end of the year anyhow. So we were just making sure that we don't have a gap of coverage. But I get what you mean. I mean, if we run out of money, we'll have to come back for sure.
Right. Okay, well, that was my question. Thank you.
Nicole, Mr. Chair, this is Trevor, if I may follow up.
Sure.
To Councilwoman Baker's point, and we've done the bidding process now, right? I think everyone understands the importance of this service, and the kind of the time sensitive, even if it was a walk-on or something. Could we amend this, to the end of the year to kind of align with the CARES money, and then come late November, early December, depending where we're at, knowing what we know with what Congress would do, extend this later on in the year? That, I agree with Councilwoman Baker. I think that would be my preference.
I guess we could change anything you want. I'm just, advising you that walking on is not really an option on our end. That we have not, we're not really allowed to do that right now. And, it's difficult to put an amendment through, but yeah, we can do that.
I mean,
And then also keep in mind, when we do amendments, from the time we start the transaction until it's completely followed through with all the different approvals, that account is frozen and no payments can be made to that vendor. So amendments are, once they're started, they disrupt the payment flow of the vendors with this new system. So, at year end, when vendors are trying to get their money and close their books, if we start the amendment in the system, they may not get a payment for quite some time. So,
If I may ask of Mike Chambers, what do you think of this, Mike? Are you comfortable with as it's written?
To the councilwoman, I am, because everything that's going on right now, we're rolling out a new module. We're coming up to the end of the year with our first new system. The last thing I want to see is a vendor being penalized or us operating uncovered if that's the case. So I am concerned with the CARES spend. I want to make sure we monitor it and we're not reserving money that we can spend elsewhere. In the likelihood they do go ahead and extend the time frame, well, everything is set the way it should be. In the event they don't, then we would come back and amend it for a new funding source. So I don't really have issues here other than making sure we're not committing money that we can spend elsewhere.
Yeah. I guess my issue beyond that is that we would be tapping into the general fund first of the year because CARES money no longer is available, and we anticipated that we would be spending it using CARES Act money based on what we're approving today. I guess that's my...
Sure. I mean, the other alternatives is we do away with it, but I'm not seeing anyone saying that that's an issue now. We're going to get ready now real soon for next year's budget updates. And obviously this is a significant impact, and we still have, there's still some uncertainty on revenues for next year and how we're going to get through the flu season.
Yeah. Okay. I just thank you for your answer, Mike. I just
Sure.
wanted to know what you're doing.
Tom, did you find out if they're registered?
I have them listed on the OPD checklist under IG number 18-0057.
What is the name?
I have Alliance Solutions, but let me just actually look up the IG's office.
Hey, Mike Chambers.
Yes.
Would it be advantageous for us on the funding source to change it to CARES Act / general fund and note, although we have no money shown in 21 on our item, that put some kind of note that if it goes beyond, it would be general fund, but I don't know if that would make them more comfortable on the approval, just so that we've all agreed to that. I don't know.
For me, it's implied it would be general fund, other than that would be the only other source. Unless it's in the HHS buildings, we would, allocate it to the HHS, Public Works.
Those are services that aren't budgeted, right? I mean,
right.
We don't have money for screeners.
Correct.
And the other route we could do is I think kind of to help with some of the concerns is keep it at the 450, end it in December. I mean, and then if we're having issues getting this on a border control, we can also discuss the potential of a emergency purchase for January. But I'm just concerned about committing kind of non-existent right now general fund or HHS levy dollars when this hasn't been discussed for 2021.
You're right, you're right.
Okay, well then
I
we'll,
mean, I guess that's an option, if the emergency purchase would work come January, if we were having trouble. You know, we could do that, just do the amendment on the emergency purchase.
I don't think that's what he's saying though, Nicole, because that's only good through the pandemic, right?
Well, you're assuming the pandemic's still going on if we need the screening services, right?
Right. It doesn't necessarily need to be funded from CARES dollars to make it an emergency purchase.
Okay, okay.
And we're also tracking this, you know, now on a weekly basis, so we're gonna know
Where
kind of
we
where we're
stand.
at, where we stand. So if we've got, for whatever reason, 300 grand come the 1st of November, then we can start the amendment process in terms of general fund dollars or levy dollars come January 1. I mean, I think putting it on the weekly report's gonna help in terms of having just a better understanding for all the council members where we stand.
Okay, then if I hear correctly, we're making a motion to amend the agenda to expire 12/31/2020 for this contract. And,
I'll second that.
okay, so we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Then I'm going to throw out there, let me just do it one more time. So I'll make a motion to approve this item and amended with the amended date of 12/31/2020. Do I have a second? Oh, and
Second, Nan Baker.
it's Nan Baker second, and this is all contingent upon the proper registration, Tom.
I have
It
something
is.
that, they're registered with the IGN or United Healthcare Solutions. It's all under the Alliance 8.
Alliance.
Alliance 8 it's a group of all Alliance. It's like a parent-child company, and Alliance Healthcare Solutions, that's how it registered last time. They're all under the Alliance 8. I can send you the list, Lenore, if you'd like to check.
Okay, well, until we can confirm it, we're going to make it contingent on that. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Yeah, opposed? Okay, the item's approved as amended. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2020-543, Department of Development, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 2712, which will result in a payment to Urban League of Greater Cleveland as fiscal agent for UBIZ Venture Capital in the amount of $200,000 for operational support for the period October 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2025, and B, recommending a payment in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. Paul Hertig with the Department of Development. This item, when approved, will commit $200,000 from our Economic Development Fund as local match for an application to the U.S. Economic Development Administration. This is a CARES Act application, which, if successful, will bring in $4 of CARES Act funding to match every dollar of local funding to create a revolving loan fund. This fund will be used for funds to make loans to small businesses in Cuyahoga County. There will be outreach to minority-owned and disadvantaged businesses, and we anticipate having an additional $200,000 of local match committed by the time the application goes in later this week, so that we hope to leverage with $400,000 of local match a total fund of $2 million available for this purpose. The fund will be administered by the Urban League of Greater Cleveland using its UBIZ Venture Capital subsidiary, and Michael Obie from the Urban League is on the line with me to assist in answering any questions from the board.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Lenore Lockett first.
Lenore Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. Urban League also isn't registered. And
I would urge making the payment of the award conditioned on that registration being completed.
Okay, duly noted. Any other questions on this item from the board?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, Trevor.
Sure, Trevor.
On the advance question, related to the, all the items, this one says it did not go through, N4. It's considered a walk-on. Why didn't this go through the process?
Trevor, this is Paul. First of all, I want to apologize. For some reason, the advanced questions did not get to me. I've been checking my email, so I apologize, not meaning to ignore anyone. This item was entered into the on-base system and is also being entered into Infor. There is a time factor here in that the Economic Development Administration has advised that funds are running out, and this application does need to be submitted by about the middle of this week to have any chance of being funded. We therefore brought it forward to executive review as a walk-on item. But again, I want to emphasize that the paperwork is being done in the Lawson system. The processing time is simply going to take longer than what we have available.
Thanks, Paul.
Any further questions on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve this item contingent on proper IG registration. Do I have a second?
I just have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I note here on the response that's detailed that this will only be used for small businesses with minority and other disadvantaged owners. So does that eliminate small businesses, mom and pop shops, those that fit a certain category? How do you distinguish between a struggling small business and fitting into the minority and other disadvantaged owners?
Sure.
How is that?
And I'm going to, in a moment, ask Michael Obey to also comment on this. My understanding of the structure is that it's permitted to have outreach and targeting towards what are considered edge businesses, which are disadvantaged businesses, which are not only minority-owned, but could include veteran-owned, disabled-owned, and other businesses considered disadvantaged. And I'm going to ask Michael to additionally comment on this in terms of whether the fund would be allowed to make a loan to a non-minority-owned business should that business apply. Michael?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Good morning, buddy. Yes, long will better. What Paul was alluding to was really to do intentional outreach for those that are disadvantaged, because they seem to be the ones to have a lot of getting traditional bank financing. But no, we will not turn anybody down because they are not disadvantaged.
Okay. You know, as you know, small businesses, all small businesses, especially dry cleaners and hardware stores and convenience stores, they struggle to get bank loans. They're not exactly at the top of a bank's, loan list. So I would hope that you would take that into consideration, especially in these times of struggling to keep the doors open, that you would expand to those businesses that are struggling because they are a small business in the environment that they're living in. So did I hear you correctly? You would not refuse them?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, we are forbidden by EDA to turn anybody down for those reasons. So any business that meet the underwriting criteria, which of course having the ability, knowing that they will have the ability to repay the loan, will qualify. Absolutely, yes. We will not turn anybody down, and that's really what the beauty of this fund is, because of the what you mentioned. A lot of businesses in our community are going to need a lot of help to survive this pandemic. Yes, absolutely. That's what it's for.
Okay. What is the interest rate for the loan? What are the terms?
We haven't gone to all the specifics, but just as general guideline is there's going to be very low cost. I can't imagine, based on today's rate environment, I can't imagine it being more than 5%. So it has to be a very low cost, rate loans, which is very, very good for small business.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for those answers, and I'm sorry to ask late. Thank you, Chair.
No, those are great questions. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
Okay, any final questions then from anyone on the board? Okay, then I will once again make a motion contingent upon proper IG registration. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2020-544, Fiscal Department submitting an amendment to a contract with Stiefel Nicholas and Company Incorporated for financial advisory services for the period August 1st, 2017 through July 31st, 2022 for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $9,450.
This is Mike Chambers. Since I deal with this the most, I thought I'd take the lead on it. This is a contract we have with our financial consultant that is used not only by the executive and team, but also by council. The agreement called for it was a $90,000 per year with a cap on 300 hours. And due to a lot of our bond refundings and a lot of other larger projects going on throughout the county, our consultant exceeded that 300 hours by 31.5, resulting in an additional $9,400. At the time of the contract, we did not encumber any more than what we were obligated to, and that is why we're bringing the amendment before you. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, hearing no questions, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Dale Miller, second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2020-545, Department of Information Technology, recommending a sole source award on a purchase order and enter into a contract with Spatialist Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $160,500 for the purchase and installation of Appraisalist GIS-based toolset software license, data review, data import, on-site training, and support services for the period September 28th, 2020 through September 27th, 2023.
Good morning, Board. Dennis Sullivan, the Department of IT. As you just heard, this is a 3-year contract, sole source. This is a GIS-based appraisal software. With us today on the phone is Tom Fisher from Department of IT in regards to the GIS portion of the application, and also from Fiscal, I believe we have Lisa Rocco and Dan Harbaugh. Questions about its uniqueness or the functionality of the application?
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions from the board to the team on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second. This is Dale.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, item approved. Thank you.
Next item, BC 2020-546, is a 2-part item. Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 3234, which will result in an award recommendation to TEC Communications Incorporated, LP, in the amount not to exceed $19,657.10 for the purchase of one ASR 1001X router software license upgrade and extended SmartNet coverage for the county's aggregation services router, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Dennis Sullivan, again, Department of IT. The exemption to use TEC is based on the fact that we're upgrading the already purchased and presently used licensing through them. You may recall that TEC won the SmartNet RFP back in 2019. With us is Andy Moles, I believe, from IT, that can further explain the reasons for the expansion needed. We're going from, and I'm getting out of my area here, but we're going from 1G to 5G coverage on the licensing, and we're co-terming the SmartNet for all the licenses combined on the same date. Andy, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Andy Moles, Department of IT. This license basically will be applied to the existing router hardware that will allow us to increase the bandwidth for the county's proprietary wide area network. This consists and contains all of the locations that we currently have all of our buildings. Due to the increase of additional buildings being added, as well as the usage of remote users, we felt that we needed to increase our bandwidth before it becomes saturated, and we...
So I told Donna I'll take them once I have a chance to sit down. I thought they were done. I thought that it's just...
Can someone please mute their phone?
Yeah. Okay. I apologize for the user on the other end.
Okay, so then...
They continue to talk. Can you please mute, please?
I think they got it now. Okay.
I
think they got it.
I think so. I hope so. So all in all, we discussed this earlier with fiscal and the prior committee. Because of the user basis of the remote activity that's going on within our network, it was advised that we should probably take a look and evaluate to see whether or not this would be applicable for the CARES Act reimbursement at this point in time. It does have a lot to do with the users, but also the users at the building that we support every day.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
Nan Baker, just a question. And I'm sorry, I should know this, but what is WAN services?
Wide area network.
Right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
And is this a one-time fee? Once we pay for it, we have it? It doesn't renew for a following year, or?
Yes, ma'am, one-time fee. Yes, ma'am. As Dennis alluded to, this currently we've been running on, and this becomes a little technical, we've been running on a 1 gigabit wide area network access that, we've been running on that same access for over probably 10 years now. And with all the new buildings, the different applications that we've added to it, we need to get up to a 5 gig for the future.
That makes sense to me. Thank you for your answer.
No worries.
Any other questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Nan Baker, second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2020-547, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Early Childhood, submitting an amendment to a contract with Pascal Learning Incorporated, doing business as Ready Rosie, now known as Teaching Strategies, LLC, for the purchase of web-based subscription services for customized child development videos for the period September 1st, 2017 through August 31st, 2020. To extend the time period to July 31st, 2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $42,840.
Good morning. This is Marcos Cortez with the Office of Early Childhood and Best in Children. This is a contract amendment with Learning Strategies for our Ready Rosie initiative. Ready Rosie provides daily short videos, which are typically less than 3 minutes, to parents. They get pushed out to them via a daily email. These videos outline age-appropriate developmental activities that parents can do with their children in the home. Teachers in our UPK classrooms push these videos out to the families in relationship to what they are learning in the classroom.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Lenore Lockett?
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. I didn't see them on the current IG registration list.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
The vendor listed is not on the current IG registration list.
Yeah, so there was an issue with that. They're listed under UJT Holdco. That's their parent company. Or UTJ, hold on, I pulled it up.
Well, while you're looking at it,
UTJ Holdco.
okay.
UTJ Holdco Inc. Their number is 20-0229.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Further questions from the board? Hearing none, then I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Al.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2020-548, County Prosecutor, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 1939, which will result in an award recommendation to SHI International Corporation in the amount not to exceed $13,284 for the renewal of 6 SMS Magnet Axiom software licenses for the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force for the period November 1st, 2020 through October 31st, 2021, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
David Terry with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. As was stated, this exemption is to allow us to renew the existing 6 licenses that are currently being used by the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. SHI International is the preferred vendor. We have done business with them for the last 2 years, and we're looking to renew this software under our federal grant through the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Trevor, second.
Seconded by Mr. Macular. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item approved. Next item. Yep.
Next item, BC 2020-549, Sheriff's Department, submitting an RFP exemption on requisition 2194, which will result in an award recommendation to FDL Marine, doing business as Edgewater Marina, in the amount not to exceed $13,232.41 for the purchase of fuel for Marine Patrol boat operations for the 2020-2021 boating seasons in connection with fiscal years 2018 and 19 Operation Stone Garden Grant Program and the Northern Border Initiative, and B, recommending the award in connection with said RFP exemption.
Stephen Witt with the Sheriff's Department. This is an award recommendation for not to exceed purchase order for the purchase of fuel, which supports our Marine Patrol unit. The reason for the FY18 and FY19 Operation Stone Garden grants funding 2020 and 21 boating seasons are that these are 3-year grants. For the 17 grant, we received additional funds, which pushed back our timetable on the 18 and 19 grants. 18 is set to expire next year, and we'll expend all the funds for that. 19 is set to expire the year afterwards. We initially solicited for quotes from local marinas in the area, but we received nothing other than guarantees that fuel will be at the market rate because none of our local marinas would lock in any kind of rate for fuel. So we elected to go with Edgewater Marina, which is where we dock our patrol boat, which will cut down on costs for fuel and time for fueling up for our officers, which leads to more funding for Marine Patrol.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Are there any questions from the board on this item? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lee Tucker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2020-550, Sheriff's Department requesting authority to apply for grant funds from State of Ohio Attorney General's Office in the amount of $39,628.65 to purchase body armor vests for law enforcement officers in connection with the fiscal year 2020 Ohio Law Enforcement Body Armor Grant Program for the period September 30th, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, and submitting the grant award in connection with said grant application.
Stephen Wood again with the Sheriff's Department. This is a grant application and award from the State of Ohio Attorney General's Office for the purchase of body armor vests. We received $39,628 for the purchase of these vests. There is a 25% match by the county. This is an annual expense for refreshing vests as they have an expiration date. They usually last about 5 years unless they wear out. So this will help cover our costs to keep our law enforcement officers safe.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board on this item?
This is Nan Baker. Just a quick question. Is this enough? I know you're trying to stay within a grant program, but is $39,628 enough to cover what you need to replace those vests that perhaps are no longer effective?
This award amount will likely cover our need for 2021. I believe we estimate about $30,000 a year in vest replacements and new vests for new hires. When an officer retires, we need to get a new vest because they're fitted specifically for that officer. But this should cover 2021, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, then I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Dan Baker, second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Moving on.
Next items are the consent items, BC 2020-551 through 552.
If you don't mind taking a moment to look through those, I just had a question on 551. Changing the not to exceed amount from 5868 to 5643. Should that be the other way around, or?
This is Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we are reducing the Westfield heating contract, which is why you see the numbers. It should be a $225 difference. And then that $225 is being added to the contract with Craftsman Custom Flooring.
Oh, I see. My bad. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yep. At this time, if any of the board members have any other questions, feel free to speak. I'll give you another moment or two to look through. Okay, are there any other questions from the board? Hearing.
Question.
Yeah, please.
Doing it quickly here.
Yeah.
On the 1627, how is the software interface between the Sheriff's Civil Case Management and RealAuction.com? How is that considered a CARES Act reimbursement?
Stephen Witt with the Sheriff's Department. This is a CARES Act reimbursement because normally the Sheriff's Civil Auctions for foreclosed properties is an in-person auction held every other week at the Sheriff's Department. What this software does is it allows us to interface with RealAuction.com, which allows the auctions to be done online remotely, which complies with social distancing requirements and our current environment in COVID. Now, this was something that is supposed to be implemented in 2021 going forward, but we had to expedite the timetable because of COVID-19.
So you will be using these funds ending December 31st, 2020, that's the intent?
Yes, it's a purchase of the software, which will be implemented, so it will be a one-time invoice of the 19,000.
Stephen, it's Chambers. Will you be actually using this by the end of 2020?
There were some delays in processing, but this should be implemented fairly quickly because we have to get our sheriff's auctions up and running as soon as possible. So it should be up and running very soon.
But will you use the actual auction software by the end of the year?
Yes, it will likely be in place within weeks.
Okay. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Baker. Do you have further questions?
Nope, that answers it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure. Any other questions from the board members? Hearing none, then I'll make a motion to approve today's consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second. This is Dale.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, today's consent agenda is approved. Moving on, do we have other business?
No other business at this time unless there is public comment.
Okay, do we have public comment? Now's the time to speak. Once, twice, okay. There is no public comment. Therefore, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Lee Tucker. All those in favor say aye.